Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Shit Happens, where shit is actually happening because my guest is not here. I'm either being stood up or she's just running late. So I don't know. I'll hang around here for like 10 minutes while we figure that out. Um, I really am not feeling well. So the fact that I was able to still kind of jump on here and do this, and my guest is here. Oh my God. I need to start telling people. You would think that, right? Podcasters would know to show up a little bit 5 minutes early. But my guest on Shit Happens just like coming in 5 minutes after. I guess shit happens, right? Welcome to Shit Happens, where shit actually happens. But before I bring my guest, so thank you for not blowing me off because I thought she stood me up, which trust me, she was gonna get it. So I'm glad she showed up. But first of all, I wanna say happy birthday to my sister. Shout out to Tanya. It's her fucking birthday today. I love you so, so, so much. And I know you're gonna have a great week and weekend. This guest of mine is not only a friend, she is also she was TalkShitWithP sponsor last 2 seasons, if I believe. Yeah, I think it was last 2 seasons or 1 season. She was my roommate recently at Podfest, and just overall human apart from everything else that she does, which we're gonna get into. So, and I always don't know how to say her name. The amount of times I have to text her to be like, "How do you pronounce your name?" So I'm gonna see if I don't mess it up this time. So let's welcome I'm gonna say Lynn. Lynn, baby girl.
Hey, Paula. Yeah, and you can always call me E for short. That's fine.
How you doing?
I'm doing well, and my clock says 10:02. So yeah, I was my plan. My original plan was to show up 10 minutes early, and yeah. But I am here. I would never stand you up, girl. I am here. I am ready to chat and talk shit with Paula.
Thank you so much. And welcome to Shit Happens, where shit happens.
Heck yeah, shit has already happened. We already had one happen, so we can check that off.
Right? How is it really shit happens if shit actually doesn't happen? That's the question, right?
But maybe we just don't see the shit happening, but it's happening somewhere where we don't see it. It's like if a tree falls down in the forest and no one hears it, did it really fall?
True. Oh my God, I am not feeling well. I have a fucking migraine, but that's the thing
Oh,
about lives, right? You've already scheduled them, so you're like, I can't cancel compared to if it was a pre-recording. I'll just be like, yo, can we record another day? I feel like the pressure of canceling a live and making the event all over again and shit. I'm like, let me just go. Let me power through for this 30 to 45 minutes, which I'm gonna make sure that you talk more than I do. So I brought you today here to talk about aspect. You've been to my podcast, Talk Shit with P, where we talked about travel gluten-free. I've been to your podcast, and now you're here on Shit Happens. But we are talking about something different today. And apart from the many things you do, you also are a ghostwriter and an editor. Speaking of ghostwriting, because you are also helping me with my book. So let's talk about the ghostwriting and your Write for You company and podcast. Like, how did that come about? How were you always into writing as a kid? Did you grow into it? Like, give us the feedback on how did you end up to the fact that today you write 2,000 to 8,000 words per day, which I don't think I even write 500 words a day. So,
well, it really helps that I like writing. So if I didn't like writing, it would clearly be torture. But so yeah, actually, as a kid, I really liked doing book reports in grade school. And back when I was a kid in the 70s, we had to handwrite everything. Like we didn't even type it out. And then in high school, we were able to type on the typewriter, which was really fun. But yeah, so I did like writing as that aspect, but I was never into like writing for pleasure or like writing for fun as a kid or a teenager. I was more into the science-based things. So I was learning a lot about different science things and working in science laboratories and things like that. And so I decided to get into writing. I was listening to a few podcasts on these people, and they were talking about like how they got into the work they love. And one guy I think more than one person had said this, but I remember one person a guest on a podcast had said something in the effect of like, if you want to do what you absolutely love doing for the rest of your life, think about what you would do if money were not an option, and then just go for it. And so my first thought was I would love to be a travel writer, because back in 2017, travel writing was really big, and I love traveling, clearly, because I have a podcast called Travel Gluten-Free. And I was like, I want to do travel writing. So I jumped into that industry, and I was teaching, before I was a writer, was teaching science and coding to middle school students for over a decade. And so I did some of that in Florida, and then I did some of that where I used to live in Utah. And so I got to the point where I just got really frustrated with teaching because it's really stressful. And so I decided to jump into writing. And I started out with travel writing, which I absolutely loved. And so that's how I got into writing from teaching. But I hadn't been an avid writer all my life. And I also have multiple college degrees. None of them are in English writing or journalism. But I found out that I have a talent for writing and ideation, which apparently I didn't know this, but not a lot of other writers have the talent to write between 2,000 and 8,000 words a day. So I'm writing my current book that I'm writing for myself that I'm publishing. It's called Senior Solutions. So it's basically senior care options and how to pay for your senior care long term. So I just finished a book on that. And in one day I wrote 7,363 words of my book. So I'm really good at coming up with ideas and getting them done really quickly, and going through and just editing, doing all the book editing for that as well.
Interesting. You said something over there. Did you say you were teaching science and coding?
Mm-hmm.
Coding, like, I'm always fascinated, especially when I find women who know how to code. Because remember back in the days, it was kind of like only men. So in my head, I was like, man, I wish I knew how to code. And it's funny because I didn't know you used to do that. However much I know so much shit about you, I'm like, okay, you go, girl. Like coders, I always admire women who code. Like we are coders. I'm like, I want to be a fucking coder, you know. But
You would be a really good coder, Paula. I could totally see you coding. You would be really good at it.
well, then I guess you gotta teach me so I can be fucking good at it. So you said you just finished the book, right? And I know you already have the Guide to Travel Gluten-Free book out, which you were writing a second series. Has that one also been done? Was it Gluten-Free Restaurant Guide?
Yeah, so I have my Guide to Traveling Gluten-Free, which is my only personal published book right now. I've worked with other clients on their books that they've published, but so I'm working on a second edition of the Guide to Traveling Gluten-Free, which basically is I'm updating my first edition. I'm adding like 3 different chapters. One chapter is going to be all about like how to find safe fast food places to eat when you're traveling. Because one of the things that's really hard when you're traveling, especially if you're traveling in like a more rural area and you're not in a city center, is finding safe food. And a lot of times the only safe food I can find when I'm traveling in those in-between places is at fast food places. So there are certain fast food places that are accommodating to gluten-free and certain that are not. So that's an example of one of the chapters I'm adding into the book. And so there's other chapters I'm adding into the book. And then I'm taking a couple chapters out that I felt like didn't give a lot of value, and then changing up and editing some other chapters in there as well.
So when are these, because you said you finished the care assistance and you're doing that, when are these books supposed to be coming out?
So my planned date for my Senior Solutions book is this spring. So sometime in April, I want to have that published. And then my Travel Gluten-Free, I actually have put on hold, and I'm going to probably publish that next year when I have more time to market it. But my next book I want to come out with after the Senior Solutions is how to repurpose your podcast or your creative content into a book. So I'm going to come out with a book about that and how to use AI to successfully do it with your own content, not just using AI to get ideas or content from the internet, because that you have to be really careful of as a writer, because a lot of that content isn't accurate, and so you have to fact check it. So a lot of times it takes more time if you're using that content, if you have to fact check it, than it takes to just write original content. And the other thing with that too is you're using other people's content. So you have a chance of plagiarism if you don't do it correctly. So I have this, I have a platform, it's called Podium, which is really fabulous for any creator that's doing content. And it actually is an AI that uses your original created content to make content. And so that's how I actually came up with a lot of the content for my senior solutions book is I used my Caring for Your Aging Parents podcast. And I took that and I put all that in Podium, and I used a lot of that content for my current book that I'm coming out with this spring. And then for my Repurpose Your Content book, I'm actually writing most of that in original content. And so I'm hoping to come out with that by this fall.
Fascinating. And it's funny you brought AI into it because I had Amazon want to publish your book if it's AI written.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's probably, I don't know for sure, so don't quote me on this, but from what I know about Amazon, I'm pretty sure that's from the liability perspective. So like, cause like there was a book on Amazon and they've probably pulled it, but it was literally called, "This book was written by AI." So I'm sure if that's their new policy, they probably have pulled that book, but it's most likely because of the liability of plagiarism. But
Right.
I will tell you, AI is great to get ideas from, because one of the things I did with my senior solutions book is I prompted ChatGPT to say, hey, what are the most common issues and challenges adult children face when caring for their aging parents? And it gave me like 12 to 15 ideas. I didn't use them all, but it was a great basis for me to help create an outline for my book. So that's one of the ways that I like to use AI when I write my books, is to come up with ideas that I might not think about, but I know the topic. So it's kind of like when you're in your own box, right? You don't think of all the ideas that other people might want, but like when I go on ChatGPT and give it a prompt for ideas, that's a great resource for me, because then it gives me ideas that I might not have come up with originally, but those are great ideas to incorporate in my book. And some of them aren't great ideas, so I just pitch those, but it's a really great way to come up with new ideas or different ideas that you may not have thought of.
That's so true. I use ChatGPT a lot, but whenever I was doing TalkShitWithP, I would put somebody's bio in there so that and ask it to come up with questions for me. And not that necessarily I would use all the questions, I would always play around with them, but it would give me ideas of questions I even didn't think about asking. Like some of them would be like, yeah, I thought about it, but some of them I'm like, yeah, I like where this angle is going. So it's a good refresh. I mean, my new consultation firm that I'm starting, actually AI helped me come up with the description in the way that, like, I already had it in my head, but how to put it together, and even give me slogans. So it does help kind of guide your creative content, if that makes sense, if you know how to use it right. So this might be a stupid question, but bear with me, it's heading somewhere. What's the difference between a ghostwriter and an editor?
That is an awesome question. I'm so glad you asked that, because I actually get that question a lot. So a ghostwriter is anyone you hire to write content for you, but they're not putting their name on it. So for example, anytime someone hires me to write or a book or anything and I'm not putting my name on it, that's actually ghostwriting. So any content creator that's creating content for their client who doesn't put doesn't say like, oh, this is by, and they put their name on it in their byline, then they are ghostwriting. But in a the more common definition of a ghostwriter is a person who wants to write a book, and maybe they feel like they don't have the time or the skill set, or they're not organized enough to write a book and they need somebody to really be an accountability partner. And they hire a professional writer who can write their book for them in a timely manner. But that writer isn't putting their name on the book. So when someone hires me as a ghostwriter, they're hiring me for my skill set of writing and getting writing done quickly for them and in their voice and style. But my name is typically not on the book. I had one of my clients say that she was going to put me as her editor because I also did edit her book. But typically when someone hires me for ghostwriting, I'm not expecting my name to be on the book. So a book editor is when someone has a finished rough draft of their book and then they say, hey, Elikqitie, I need you to edit my book. Can you go through and make changes that you think would make my book maybe more readable, more organized, more give it better flow, grammar check it, like things like that. So there's many different aspects of editing that I can do for someone. So there's organizational editing. There's just doing grammar checking if someone just needs a grammar check. I can help edit somebody for their voice, flow, and style. So there's a lot of different ways I can help someone with editing. And so that's the difference. So with book editing, I may be listed as an editor on the book. I might not be, but they're just more paying me to go through their content they've already written and like polish it up, basically.
Thank you for clarifying that. So, what would you say our relationship is? Because is it ghostwriting or editing, or is there in between? Because
ours is actually both, because what I offer with my ghostwriting package, which I don't think a lot of ghostwriters offer, and also too, the other thing is a lot of writers don't like ghostwriting because many writers are very introverted, and I'm actually an exception to that. I'm very extroverted. And so I love working one-on-one with people and basically talking them through their book and helping them with like ideas and like, content organization where I feel as a professional or their book like could go in like maybe a little bit better direction, maybe niche it down a little bit, but maybe help them talk to their avatar a little bit more. But so for my clients, what I do is I offer ghostwriting and book coaching, which is what we're doing. So it's partly like we get together once a month or once a week, however often we need to get together, and we meet up and we go over like what's been done, what the next step is. And then I have my homework and then you have your homework. And so what I do is kind of a combination of ghostwriting, book coaching, and editing, because those are all included in my monthly package, which makes it a lot easier for my clients. So if they want to hire a second editor, and some people do for their book, they can do that. But they can take the finished product that I give them and then take it and take it to someone to get formatted, or if they want to pay me to format their book, because that's the next step after you have all of your book content done. And then you need someone to design your book cover. So I actually incorporate all three of those into my ghostwriting package, which is why it makes it very easy for my clients to keep moving through the steps, because I'm always there every step of the way, guiding them on what the next step is we need to do.
I love that, and thank you for clarifying that. You mentioned these packages. Can you let the people know the packages you have?
Yeah. So I have three packages, and they're all based on hourly monthly rates. So one is a 3-hour package, and then I've got an 8-hour package, and I think it's a 12-hour package is my third one. And so basically there's three different retainer rates, and depending on how many hours you want. But with my packages, they're all flexible time. So with my 3-hour package, my 8-hour package, or my 12-hour package, you can have me I can use that time for consult time, for book coaching time, for editing time, or for writing time. And it's very flexible. So like typically in the beginning, when I'm working with a client, we use more of our time for consulting and meeting in person. And then as the book moves on, I spend more of my time with writing the book and not in consulting time, because we'd moved past a lot of the initial like book organization, and I ask all the questions and where do you want to go with the book and who your avatar is and what's the purpose of your book and why are you writing it? And then, so as we go on, I do more writing and editing as the months go on. And so I don't have a contract per se, but I do ask that all my clients hire me for a minimum of 3 months, because there's no way you're going to usually finish a book in less than 3 months, unless you go with my other package, which is if you say, hey, Elikiqitie, I want this book done in 30 days, then, and you give me a bunch of content, then I can give you a project price, and I can say, I can have it done in 30 days. You can give me your content, here's your package price, and you give me the content, and I'll just write it out for you. So that's another option that I have, but almost all my clients pick my book coaching monthly option.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Oh, it's on my screen. Hey, Paula, I just want to let you know, I can sort of hear you, but you froze on my screen.
So you can hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Okay, just keep talking.
Okay, sounds good.
Shit
So yes,
happens.
Right? So that's number two shit happening on or live today. But yeah, that's kind of the whole gist with like my packages is I just really like to help people, and most of my clients have never written a book before, so they're really unsure of the process and unsure of what to do. But if you do decide to go with a ghostwriter, I have a discovery call that you can just talk to me for 15 minutes, see if we're a good fit. But I always recommend people, whoever you go with, please, please, please make sure your ghostwriter has a published book, because I feel like you can't be a good ghostwriter if you've never published your own book, because you've gone through the process, you know how hard it is, you know where people get tripped up really easy. And so I would never recommend anybody hire a ghostwriter who hasn't published their own book, because I feel like that's kind of like a basic thing. Like I would never hire, I would never hire a chef who hasn't cooked for somebody. Like it's just kind of silly, right? So I
They
always
cook for
have,
themselves.
yeah. And the other thing I always recommend to people is you always want to hire a ghostwriter that really clicks with your personality, because they're going to be your best friend when they're writing your book. And if you hire somebody and you guys don't get along really well, it's going to be hell in a handbasket. It's going to be a dumpster fire the whole time. You're going to be miserable. So the two things I always recommend at the top of your list, if you're hiring a ghostwriter, make sure you click with the person's personality and that your values align, and also make sure they've published a book.
And that's not true, because I remember because how me and how we have been doing my book is I've been recording them in videos so that I can have content, but I send you the audio file. And I remember the first time you sent me the chapter, and I was reading, and I was like, oh fuck, it really feels like I'm the one writing it, because you know me so well, you've been around me, you've hanged out with me, so you know how I talk, how I actually, like when you hear me talk, you can write it. So that was like a wow moment for me, like, oh my gosh, she actually talks like me, like literally she's saying like me. So I believe that it really is important to click with somebody who's writing your book, because especially if you want your book to portray you, unless you're writing about, because my book is really kind of my journey, so my personality really has to show, and you've done that. Speaking of that, right, you're ghostwriting for 3 first-time authors right now. Are you allowed to mention those, or?
Yeah, I can't really mention people that I'm currently ghostwriting for, because they haven't marketed their book yet. But one person I can mention that I did help with editing his book. His name is, I'm completely blanking his name now. Oh my gosh. I will think of it in a
Shame
second.
on you.
But I know, right? But he's a professional networker, and he teaches executives how to network. And so he is really fabulous. His name is, give me one second, Alex Tremble. And he also has a really fabulous podcast. And let me look it up really quick so I can give him a plug. But I love Alex. And the reason I love Alex's book is because he not only talks about networking, but he talks about why networking is so important for growing your personal, not only your professional, but your personal relationships as well, and how to really grow those through networking. And his podcast is called The Executive Appeal. So if you want to learn about networking, I would highly recommend listening to The Executive Appeal and pick up Alex Tremble's latest book on networking. It's his 4th book. He's a multi-published author. And in addition to that, he's just a super fabulous human being. And he's had his first child just last year. So he's a brand new father.
Nice. Impressive. What would you say your favorite part about ghostwriting is, or editing? Like, what are your favorite parts about it?
So I have 2 different favorites for each one. So my favorite part about editing is I really love, like, my goal with editing anybody's content is to rewrite their content, but in their voice and style. Because some book editors, they will rewrite someone's content and how they feel it should be presented. But like, that's not my job. Like, I should not be writing in how I feel it should be presented, because it's your book. Or your content, whatever I'm writing, an article, even if it's just an article, right? I want you to read it, like you said, and be like, oh my God, this is me talking. And so that's my main goal with book editing. And I love when I hear comments like you just made, where you're like, oh my gosh, I got it back. And it sounds like me. Like, that's my favorite thing about book editing. My favorite thing about ghostwriting is, for many people, writing a book is a huge bucket list item. And so for me to be a part of that journey of their life is super exciting, because I'm assisting someone in getting a large bucket item life goal checked off. And for me, that's like my biggest reward, is doing that for somebody, because for me, I know I have lots of bucket list items that I check off every year, and that always makes me feel more fulfilled. So I love assisting my clients and helping them feel more fulfilled and checking off bucket list items.
That's amazing, because you are helping me check a bucket list that I've been meaning to check off in a minute. So thank you for that.
You're
And
welcome.
speaking of writing, right? I believe you were supposed to be writing some nonfiction books. What's up with that?
Yeah, no, so my senior solutions that I'm coming up with, like, are you talking about my personal ones that I'm writing and publishing?
Yes.
Yep. So my senior solutions, that's the one I'm coming out with in April. And then after that one, I plan on finishing. I started, but I haven't finished it. So after I get that one published and marketed, I'm going to work on my repurposing your content into a book in this summer. So I want to publish that in the fall. And then I haven't decided. And then the next book I'm going to come out with after that is like a small business guide, small business owners guide to organic marketing and like increasing your SEO organically online. And so that book I have almost completely done. So I have to just finish that up, get a beta reader group put together on it, and then do some editing and formatting and publishing on that one. So those are my next 3 books that I plan on coming out with this year. And I made my main goal this year focus on getting my writing done, because I'm always helping other people with their writing, but I'm not accomplishing my own writing goals. So that's something I'm going to do. And then another goal I have for this year that pertains to my writing is making my author website, because I have my writeforyou.me site, which I talk about all my services, but I actually don't have a author website specifically to highlight my books, which is something I'm going to be working on this summer as well.
Nice. I love that. I can't wait to see the website. So we're going to switch gears for a second here, because you're one busy woman, right? You write for you do all this shit, and you also have 3 podcasts as well. So I want to talk a little bit about the podcast you got going on, and how do you maintain your time for your clients, for yourself, and then also for your family and friends.
Yeah. Well, one thing I have learned to do in the past 3 years is I learned to block out time and work in time blocks, because if you just sit down every day and you're like, oh, I have all this stuff to do, it's really hard to get organized and get everything done when you need to get done. However, what I've learned is that I've picked Monday to be my in-office day. So I don't take any appointments on Monday unless it's like a really big exception and I really need to take an appointment. So Mondays are just my in-office days where I get my marketing done. I plan out my content, like do all those types of things, and write my content and then send it off to my assistant who publishes it for me on LinkedIn and other places. And so that's my Mondays. Also my client management. So I get a lot of that done on Mondays. And then I also need to give a shout out to my assistant, Paula Yap, who is absolutely fabulous, best assistant ever. So she helps me.
Her name is Paula. Of course, she has to be fabulous. Okay.
Right? Yes, I think actually every Paula I've ever met was super fabulous. So it's a great name to have if you're a fabulous person, because it totally matches with the personality. But yeah, Paula is fabulous. So shout out to Paula, because she really helps me get all of those behind the scene things done, like client management and posting and all that stuff. So I write all the content. She helps me with posting and client management. And then my Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays are typically a lot of my networking, where I go out, I meet people in person, build those relationships. And then Tuesdays are like my call days, where I like reach out to clients, call them, follow up with people, things like that. So having that type of schedule is really helpful, because then I know certain days I'm doing certain tasks. And I have a list. Like Monday, I've got a checklist of the things I need to do on Monday, which is the same thing every Monday. And Tuesday is the same. But the hardest thing, of course, is protecting that time. So you have to be really careful with protecting that time and letting your clients know, okay, I'm available these days, and these are the only days I'm available for that. so that you can plan ahead. And once you protect those times and start planning ahead, it's much easier to get that done on a regular basis. And then I always make time, like I always have some event during the week that's a fun time event that I look forward to. Like tonight, there's game night in my town of McMinnville. So I'm super excited to go and meet some new friends at the local, it's called Mac Market, which is this cute little cafe restaurant. So I'm gonna go there and meet some new people for game night tonight. So just like making sure that I also weave in those fun things to do. And then I love to travel. So I always plan all of my work around my travel. So I know like a week before I travel, I'm going to be front loading a lot of client work. So I'm not going to be doing a lot of fun things because I'm going to be traveling next week and doing a lot of fun things. So all of those things I kind of fit in, but time management is huge. Like if you want to be a writer or a ghostwriter, you need to have good time management and you need to be organized, because if you're not those two things, I would highly recommend to make sure you have a really good grasp on time management and organization before you even think about being a writer or being paid to be a writer, because those two things are essential in order to be a successful writer, to get things done on deadline. And this is speaking of writing, this is my writing assistant, Hemingway, who is my little 2-year-old male cat who loves to help me with writing, but isn't very good at spell check.
I love how every time we record, he always appears.
It's
like I know Paula hates cats, so I'm gonna make sure I make an appearance just to get on her nerves.
I think that's the definition of being a cat.
But look at it, just chilled and shit. Like this could be a nice photo shoot. Let me snap a screenshot.
I know. I swear my cat is not high. This is his nap time, so he typically crawls into my lap this time of day and falls asleep.
Oh, well,
He's
sorry, we're
definitely a
taking your
mama's
nap
boy.
time.
Oh no, he's fine. I'm going to put him in my lap. He'll probably fall asleep while I'm talking to you. Or not. Maybe he's going to walk across my desk right now.
All right, so you were just giving us how you maintain your stuff. Now we would love to hear about all these 3 podcasts. Like it's idea has to just owning one podcast. You have 3, so let's talk about these 3 podcasts you got going on and why you felt the need to have this podcast.
Yeah. So my original podcast, Travel Gluten-Free, started out of me being celiac. And my first trip I took after, and if you don't know what celiac means, it means that it's not really an allergy to gluten, it's an autoimmune response. But what happens if I eat anything with gluten in it, even if it's like someone prepared my food on a surface that had gluten, even if it's like cross-contaminated like that and it touches other food and it's not even a direct ingredient, like within 15 minutes, my stomach starts to feel sick. And within an hour, I need to get to a bathroom. And I'm literally in the bathroom for 8 hours being sick. So you can imagine, like, this has happened on vacation twice to me in the past 10 years. And so I've definitely missed some really fun events on vacation because of that. But for the amount that I travel, it actually happens very little to me. And that's, so I was traveling on the Pacific Coast Highway. I was I was traveling. I was doing a road trip on the Pacific Coast Highway, and I was in California starting my trip, and I realized, like, oh my gosh, I'm by myself. If I get this sick, like, what am I going to do? Like, I'm going to have to stop at a hotel. I'm going to be at a hotel for several days being sick. Like there's got to be resources out there to tell me like what to do when I travel. And so when I got back from my 3-week trip, I went online and I couldn't find any good resources that were told you about, like, hey, this is what you do when you road trip, or this is what you do when you take an airplane. It was more of like, oh, here's 50 restaurants in New York City you can eat at if you're gluten-free. But I'm like, okay, but I'm not going to New York, so that doesn't help me. And I couldn't find any really good online resources 8 years ago that talked about like how to travel gluten-free. So I was talking to one of my friends, his name is Chris Ness. He's really big in the educational podcasting space and has an educational podcasting network. And he said, well, why don't you do a podcast on it? And I was like, well, I was going to do a blog first and then a podcast. He's like, well, there's 4 million blogs and 250,000 podcasts. So you're going to get much more traction with a podcast than a blog. And I'm like, good point. I'll start the podcast first. So that's what I did. I started my Travel Gluten-Free podcast. It'll be 6 years on next week, actually, that I've had Travel Gluten-Free podcasts. I have 9 seasons of it out. And then, so I started that as a resource for other people to help other people, because I'm like, I know I'm not the only person who is gluten-free and loves to travel. And so I've actually had people come up to me at different expos and have told me, like, I've literally not traveled for years because of my celiac disease, because I thought I couldn't travel. And now we're traveling because we've listened to your podcast and now we know how to travel safely. So that's really awesome, because that was my whole purpose of that podcast, is to teach other people that yes, celiac disease can suck. Yes, you have to make a lot of modifications. Yes, you have to plan ahead, but it's still doable. You can still travel. You just have to know what to do. And so just giving these people the tools and resources to not feel like having celiac disease is going to change their lifestyle dramatically. So that's why I came up with Travel Gluten-Free. And then I decided to write a book. So I did that and published it in 2020, which was not the best year to publish a travel book, but I did it anyway. And then I had my writing business. So I wanted to have a podcast that talked about like my writing business and helping people self-publish their own books. So that's when I came up with Your Writing Coach podcast. And then when I got into Senior Advisor this past summer, I wanted to, again, have another podcast to educate people on caring for their aging parents. So that's when I started that podcast. And so what I figured out to do is that having a podcast takes up a lot of time if you want to market it correctly. So what I did is I put all three of my podcasts on seasons. So my Travel Gluten-Free one runs in the summer when most people are traveling. My senior care one runs from fall to the end of winter, which is when most people are looking for care for their parents. And then my writing coach one typically airs from September to January, because that's when most people are self-publishing their books. But I also take breaks and do seasons. So like this year, I'm actually taking a break on my Travel Gluten-Free podcast because, and my Your Writing Coach podcast, because I am working on getting my books published. And so I had to decide, I have all this stuff on my plate. I can't do it all. Like, what am I going to take off my plate? So this year I decided to take a break on my podcast, those two, and I'm still going to continue with my season 2 of my Caring for Aging Parents in the fall. But taking those breaks of those two podcasts is going to give me the time and space I need to finish my goal of getting these books that I mostly have written published. And that was more important to me this year than getting my podcasts out. So I decided to just take those off my plate just for a season and then come back next year and do those once I have my 3 or 4 books published that I want to have published.
And I love that. And I think that's one reason why people end up being burned out, because they have this notion that you can't take a break or you lose your audience or something. But I look at it like, look at TV shows. They go during the winter, like they go on breaks and when they still come back, when you find out your favorite show is coming back with season 3, you get excited. And I feel like as long as you're honest with your audience, they're okay, because they do understand. Some of them are even excited that you're taking a break so that they can actually catch up or get caught up, or so then prioritize other things. So it is part of life and I want more people to know that it's okay to take a break, relax, and then come back to it. And that's what I'm trying to do with TalkShitWithP. And that's why I started Shit Happens, because I can broadcast it live, and then eventually I just take the audios and turn them. I'm trying to figure out if Shit Happens should have its own podcast, or should I just dump them on Talk Shit with P? But it's like, this makes it easier. I still end up doing what I love without worrying about the promotion aspect, the editing, the other shit. So I love that you do yourself that, especially when you want to prioritize things, like you want your books to be out this time. So, that way by the time you also come back to your podcast, you have a lead magnet to share to people, like, yo, my book is out, go check out my new project and all that. So it always leads to one. So
exactly. Yep. Actually, there are two big conferences on senior care coming up this fall that I want to go to. So I want to have that book available to sell to people at the conference to, let them see, like, hey, I've got this really great book. But yeah, like as you said, because I remember on your last episode, you said, hey, I'm taking a break. So as long as you get on and tell your listeners you're taking a break and don't just ghost them, like never ghost because then you're going to lose people. But like I tell people my last season episode, I'm like, hey, this is the last episode of the season. Please go back. Here are some of our popular seasonal episodes of the season to listen to. Give them a listen. And please let me know what you want to hear for the next season, because I'd love to get your input. But even if you don't have a seasonal episode, even if you have like a regular annual episode, you can still take a break. just like do what you did and like get on and say, hey, I'm taking a break. And you don't even have to say why. You can just say, I need a break from my podcast. I love you as listeners. Please come back, when I'm jumping back into my podcast. But in the meantime, these are some really great fan favorites that if you haven't listened to, I suggest you listen to. So as long as you keep people informed, they're going to be excited when you come back, and you're not going to lose a whole bunch of listeners. And if you do, you may lose some listeners, and that's okay. You're going to gain some new ones when you come back. So don't get too wrapped up in the numbers. And I've heard some people say like, oh, once you finish a season, you have to start a new season the next week. That is absolutely not true. I take breaks for like 6 months in my seasons, and I have consistent numbers pretty much across the board. So, and yes, it takes a little dip when I'm in off season, not a big deal. When I get back on season, the numbers go back up again.
I take 2 months. Like I take a month off to actually just not do anything about my podcast. Then the next month is to do the pre-recordings. That way, when I come back, I already have the 15 episodes lined up. I don't have to be recording. At the end of the day, I like the statement that people say, it's your fucking podcast. You can treat it as how you want to treat it. Just let your audience know. That's it. Your audience just want the information. So if you can provide that information, you're perfectly fine. And as you said, even if you lose some, you're going to gain some, because by the time you come back, you might want to switch things up. You might want to pivot. You might even change your entire outlook. Like I went on a break one time and I came back with a whole new logo. So maybe the people who loved me then didn't love to associate with the new logo, but I got new people because they love the new logo. So it always, it is what it is.
Yeah, but it's also great too. There's an advantage to taking a break from your work, especially as a creative, because then you can actually go back and look at like what you're doing and then review it and think of like, what do I want to change? Like I listen to other podcasts and I think like, oh, I would love to add that in my podcast. So I'm going to add this aspect of it, whatever it is, in my podcast. And so it gives you the time to really sit and think about like what you're doing and where you want to go and what maybe you need to add or take away from your current podcast to get moving in that direction. And the other thing too is if you're not having fun podcasting, then why do it? Like, why make it a chore? Like, I love podcasting and I plan on doing podcasting until literally I am in the ground. Like, I'm going to be doing a podcast, Paula, the day before I die. And I'd be like, this is Elikiqitie on Travel Gluten-Free. This is like episode 5,000,006 in season 2,900, right? Like my husband asked me, like, what are you going to do when you retire? I'm like, I'm going to be doing Travel Gluten-Free podcast till the day I die. I know that for sure. So that's one thing is like, yeah, you need to enjoy it. And if you're not enjoying your podcast, take breaks. I changed mine from annual to seasonal episodes. Like, so you can make that change too, if you want to, but you don't have to. You can still leave your podcast as a regular annual podcast, episodic podcast, and then just take breaks for like 3 or 4 months at a time, recoup, look at what you're doing, figure out what you want to do for next season, and enjoy your podcast. Don't make it so that it's like so overwhelming you're not enjoying it. Another thing you can do too to your podcast is if you're doing weekly and that's too much, do it twice a month. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing it twice a month as long as you're consistent with the timing you're putting it out.
That's so true. In Justin, let me see if I can pronounce his last name properly. Schenk.
Yes.
In Justin Schenk's words, I'm going to keep doing it until it's fun. When it's no longer fun, I'm going to quit the hell out of it. So if it's not fun for you,
Amen.
that means either you have to quit or just take a break so you can find. And the thing about taking a break, you get to research, you get to get back to your purpose, and while you're doing it, you get to be motivated. You get to be outside and be inspired so you can bring back great content. Because if you're burnt out and you're just going, is the content even worth it if people can feel you're burnt out or you're not excited about shit? Because I know when I start getting burnt out or like overwhelmed, I'm not even excited, and I feel like people can feel it. Because even when I'm around people and my energy is low, people are like, are you okay? What's wrong with you? Did I piss you off? Because they're so used to my energy being high. Like literally, I remember at Podfest, Michelle came to me and she was like, are you mad at me? Did I do something? I'm like, girl, no, why? She's like, because you're so quiet. I'm like, girl, I just need to recharge right now. Like literally, because I'm always on 10, but people don't know is I have to disappear to go recharge so I can continue being on the 10. But if you catch me while my batteries are running low, I'm not going to be that way. So I feel like if I'm on my podcast, people can feel it. So I don't want to give out the energy that I'm not enjoying to people who are taking their time to actually listen to my shit.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No, I totally understand what you're saying. And I feel the same way too. Like there's a lot of things that I do that like if I'm not enjoying doing it, I'm not going to do it. But I also have a similar, not as much as you, because I think you're the highest energy person I know, Paula, but I have very high energy. And so people are like, when I'm not feeling good, like people, you can hear it in your voice. Like I know I listen to podcast episodes on your podcast and I can hear it in your voice when you're really tired or you're not feeling well. And audio is so good at trans what am I trying to think of moving that feeling, like when you're listening to someone's voice, you can really hear how they're feeling. And so yeah, like to your point, if you're like really burned out on your podcast and you keep podcasting, people are going to hear you're burned out and then they're going to be like, I don't want to listen to this because she's just like tired and sad all the time or whatever, right? Or even if you're just tired and you're not enthusiastic, like people aren't going to want to keep listening
Like,
to your
this is
show.
not the energy I came for. I'm used to the other energy. Why am I wasting my time? But out of curiosity, I'm curious, what made you get into the senior care side of things?
Yeah, so the reason I actually got into senior care was I last summer I had lost a lot of my smaller clients to AI because they were using AI to build their content, so they let go of my services, and so I was looking at another industry to get into, and I didn't even know that being a senior advisor was a job, and I had taken care of both my parents. They had been both diagnosed with cancer in the same year in 2001. And so they had both been diagnosed with cancer in that year, and then they both passed away from cancer in 2000 in the same 1 year time frame. And I'm an only child, so I was their main
I'm so
caregiver for 6 years.
sorry for your
It was
loss.
it was tough, and I remember how tough it is. And part of it was it was really stressful because I was an only child. But the flip side of that is because I had no siblings, I got to make all the decisions, and so I didn't have really anybody arguing with me on what decisions to make for caring for my parents. But doing that, especially when my kids were really little, like they were like 10 and 7 at the time when I was caring for my parents, was so hard and so stressful. And then my dad had always worked a blue collar job his whole life. And one of his things was he wanted me to get a college degree because he's like, I know if you have a college degree, you'll be fine. And so I was literally going to college full time while taking care of my parents and my kids because I wanted to graduate and to have my dad come and see me walk. So I graduated and he saw me walk in August and he passed away 4 months later. So that was a huge thing for me, like, so that my dad could pass knowing that, I would be okay. I mean, even though I knew a college degree wouldn't make me okay, in his mind, that's his perception. And so I wanted to fulfill that goal for him of graduating college and having him watch me walk. And so that was really important to me. So what I did, because I have a very small family, is I enlisted all of my friends who were willing to help. Like some of my friends picked up my kids. Some of my friends like came and stayed with my parents at certain times of the day. Some of my friends went to the pharmacy and picked up their prescriptions. Like I had friends doing almost everything for me. And I was so grateful for all those friends who stepped up because I would never have been able to get through it without that. And so knowing all those things, a senior advisor actually picks up a lot of that slack for people. And so knowing how stressful it is to go through that, I saw how valuable it was to be in that position to help other people with that transition with their parents. And so that's why I really wanted to get into senior advising, because I knew it's super helpful for people and their families. Like I know, and basically what I'm doing is I'm freeing up a lot of their time and shortcutting them. So like, I'm basically like a senior care coach, or I tell people, think of me as your senior housing matchmaker, because I can fast forward you through all of the crap and give you what the information you need to take care of your parents, not all of the hearsay that's out on the internet that may or may not be true. So that's my main value that I offer to my clients, is really being a resource and helping them find the right type of care for their parents, whether that's in-home care, whether that's maybe like senior housing, whatever it is that they need.
I love that. And I am so proud of you for being like, fuck it, now I lost this. Instead of whining about that, let me go look at what other opportunity I can create for myself. And I like that. And I think, I am so proud of the people I I associate myself with and I stay around with, because you all keep motivating and inspiring me. Because I'm like, if she's doing this, she just went and took another course and did this. Why the fuck am I still just lacking? So thank
Mm-hmm.
you for being an inspiration and a motivator for me. So as we
Well,
come to
thank
an
you. I
end of,
appreciate being. I love that you feel that way, because that makes me feel so awesome and warm and amazing. Thank you,
oh
Paula.
yeah, I mean, fuck, I wouldn't be hanging out with you if you ain't doing shit or
Same.
like, come on now, you know. But before we, as we're coming to an end of this, I am glad the way I'm shaking. I don't know if y'all can feel it. Like I'm literally can't wait to end this and go back to bed because I'm really, really not feeling well, and I'm glad that I've been able to get through this. But the people want to know, when is Paula's book gonna be coming out? The people need to know.
Well, I can't answer that, Paula, because honestly, that always depends on my client. But I'm hoping sometime this year we can definitely get your book out.
You know,
We definitely need to
I'm
work on
sure.
some more details, and we need to work on your author website. And I'm super excited about your author website.
I'm feeling like the people need it either in May for mental health awareness or June, which will be my 35th birthday. Imagine celebrating 35 with my book coming out.
Okay. Okay, we
So
could do May. We could do May. Yep. And yeah, oh yeah, and yeah, we could totally do May. We'll talk about that. But yeah, we could do May because we're getting really close to finishing your rough draft.
so this bitch sent me an email to book my time for my shit, and then she forgot to put that link in there. So people don't be like how when you send emails, right? Because I'm reading the email, I'm like, you could have booked your time, and I'm like, but where's the fucking link to
I
book my
did. That
fucking
was
time?
totally my bad.
Well, so as we come to an end, thank you so much for coming on and sharing, and thank you for educating me and whoever needed educating on ghost difference between ghostwriting and editor, because I'm always wondering about that. And so let the people know how they can find you, where they can find you, what to expect out of you coming up, and some advice for those people who want to get their book out there.
Yeah. So I would say, let me start with
I
your last
mean,
question.
sorry. Their book out there, and why or why shouldn't they hire a ghostwriter?
Okay, awesome. So let me start with that one first. So you want to get, so there's several reasons you could want to write a book. One is because if you're a speaker and you want to get better paid speaking gigs and more speaking gigs, that's a great reason to write a book. If you want to leave some type of like memoir and legacy for your family or for other people who know you, your family and friends, that's a great reason to write a book. Or if you just want to write a book because you have a great idea, you've got maybe a self-help or another nonfiction or memoir book in your head you want to write, any of those reasons are great. And the reason to hire a ghostwriter is to have someone to keep you accountable, to have someone to help you keep you moving along the way, and to have someone to keep you inspired and on track so that you can publish within a date. I always tell a date range, like never pick one date, but like maybe like a couple months, within a couple months of each other. So is to have somebody, a professional who can guide you through all of those things. And so you can skip a lot of those common mistakes that people make in self-publishing that I know I've made. And now that I'm a professional ghostwriter, I don't make those anymore. So I can help people with that aspect of it and to like skip making all the mistakes. And that's the book coaching part of what I do with ghostwriting. So, and if you want to reach out to me for ghostwriting or just to chat, you can reach out to me on my website. It's www.writeforyou.me. You can also listen to my podcast. It's called Your Writing Coach Podcast. It had 3 different name iterations. So you'll hear Digital Marketing Hot Seat, you'll hear Marketing Mastermind, and then I turned it into Your Writing Coach. But it's all the same podcast. So definitely check that out. I talk about book writing and marketing. And if you want to reach out to me directly, just hit me up on my contact form on my website, or you can also click my discovery call button on my website, which is www.writeforyou.me, like WRITEFORYOU.me.
Thank you very much. And for all those who are wondering why you should hire her, I'm telling you, go hire her, because the way my book has been working and been written is so exciting, and I can't wait for y'all to actually read it and be like, damn, this actually feels like Paula wrote it. I mean, I did the voice notes, but she actually did the writing, and she really captured me in my personality, like right on. So that's exciting, and it's always fun to work with her. So thank you for sponsoring TalkShitWithP. Thank you for working with me, and just thank you for being my friend. Last year when I was going through shit, she was always there calling me and sending me memes and stuff. So it's also the power of connections you make in these conferences you go. Because me and actually, did we know each other through Podfest or Adam Podpals? Either one of them.
Through Podfest. We initially met through Podfest, and then we saw each other on a couple of Adam's PodPal parties.
And then we met in person.
And then we started hanging out. Yep. And then
Last year
it
we
was
ended
all
up
shit
a
from
lot together, and then this year she became my roomie. So it's funny how, and that's why I'm saying, like, I love how Podfest, every year the connections you make with people just keep getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and it really is a family. So thank you for being family to me, and thank you for coming on today and sharing your expertise. And I know I learned some shit, and I'm pretty sure some people learned some shit, and yo, go fucking higher.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to write your book, Paul. It's been so much fun working with you. And yeah, and thank you for having me on today, even though you feel like shit. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure, darling. Thank you all for who are watching live. For those who are going to watch the replay, I appreciate you. This is Shit Happens Where Shit Happens. And lastly, again, happy birthday to my sister, Tanya Mola Mola. Bye, y'all. Until next time. Hold on, don't